Yeah, well, I'll also say that actually sanctuaries and refuges and that is part of our trips as well. So wherever we
Right.
can, we visit a sanctuary or a refuge. So we were in the Dordogne. There is an incredible sanctuary that just opened a few years ago. It's called Elephant Haven, and they are two former zookeepers. And they left the zoo industry, love elephants so much, and they opened the first European sanctuary for elephants. And the two that are there now, the two who are there now, are rescued from. They were both rescued from exploitation, and that can be from Europe, that could be from Romania, it could be from Germany, it could be from wherever. When we do our Alsace trip, we go to a bear and wolf sanctuary in the Black Forest, where there are wolves and bears who are rescued from different various kind of abuse and exploitation. So it depends on where we go. In Vietnam, we go and support incredible work being done for a particular kind of monkey, a langur monkey, and we go on a hike and a trek with them to see the work they're doing, with a very difficult communist country, a government, to work to protect the forests and the habitat of.
Welcome to the Better Life for Animals podcast, where we amplify the voices of animal advocates, sanctuaries, and changemakers working toward a kinder, more compassionate world. Through powerful stories and expert insights, we shine a light on the efforts to rescue, protect, and advocate for animals. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. Every follower helps us reach more people. And support animal sanctuaries. Enjoy the conversation.
Our guest today is Colleen Patrick-Goudreau, known as the Joyful Vegan. She is a leading advocate for compassionate and ethical living. Growing up in New Jersey, she developed a deep emotional connection to animals while grappling with the contradictions of consuming animal products. Inspired by pivotal works like Diet for a New America, Colleen transformed her life and became a passionate voice for veganism and kindness. As a best-selling author of 7 books, host of the long-running Food for Thought podcast, and creator of Joyful Vegan Trips, she educates and empowers people to align their values with their actions. Her work champions empathy, sustainability, and a plant-based lifestyle, making her a prominent thought leader in animal advocacy and ethical living. Colleen, welcome to the broadcast, and so thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, thank you, Cheryl. I love how you summarize that because I find it so boring to hear my story. But I really love what you grabbed and what you shared. So that's it. That's a wrap. I mean, that's everything.
Okay, we're done. Your body of work is quite extensive, and we could talk for hours today, but today I think I'd like to focus on a few things. One being a year of compassion, which I highly recommend. I would like to talk about your vegan travel offerings, and I'd also like to kind of tie it in with how animal sanctuaries just fit so nicely into both. But let's start today with what you were talking about on your post, which was your restaurant options. I just came back from Japan. I was the only vegan on the trip. And while they did not promise me that they would be able to feed me, they worked mountains to do so. And I really appreciate that. And at the same time, I was not inspirational. I don't think anybody was looking at my plate going, I wish I could be eating that. I think they looked at me as, I'm cool with it because on one hand, I'm being an advocate, whether it's subtle or not, be it the restaurant person making the meal, the person who's having to figure out where to feed me, or the people that are watching me eat. But we do want to talk about, your trips because I think they could probably be more fun on that level. But I just wonder, why I loved your idea about, the restaurants taking, instead of having a vegan menu, which only I will look at, instead, let's all work, including, the restaurants. It's like Japan is all about vegetables. So why aren't we highlighting those vegetables, What do you think about that?
Yeah, so there's so much to say there. So first of all, you're also showing up as someone who has ethics and is living them in in the world. And people pay attention to that. They're seeing that maybe the dishes you got weren't as inspired as what they were eating, but you're still showing up as someone who is living her values. And I think that goes a long way. So it's what you're advocating and what the restaurants are doing, but it's also what people are seeing. And I think that's just one of the most authentic things we can do is just show up as the compassionate people we are. But yes, let's talk about the food.
Yeah, let's.
So it's true. I mean, so listen, I think this is one of the reasons for years I have been talking about how vegans, including myself, who uses the word vegan in every one of her books, who does not shy away from the word vegan, but there is a time and a place to be mindful that we are not overusing the word vegan in that it becomes something that turns people off. But more than that, it winds up, especially when it comes to food and restaurants and menus and the names of dishes, it winds up sounding like, oh, there's a million things to say. First of all, it sounds, there's no reference point. Like, what does vegan mean? Like,
Mhm.
it's not descriptive. It doesn't say anything. Sure. Okay. Someone might go, I think that means you're not eating animals, right? My cousin's vegan, but I think she also eats fish and in Japan, I will say this, you don't eat that means you don't eat gluten or soy sauce, right? So there's that doesn't say anything universally to anybody. The other thing it does is make non-vegans say, "Oh, that's food for you. That's your food. That's food for vegans. That's vegan food." And it sounds like it's its own separate food group and it is exclusive to vegans. So, in the example of the separate menu for vegans, or the separate vegan menu, no one else will ask for the vegan menu. You might have a friendly friend advocate of a vegan that they're in a restaurant. They'll say, "Oh, my friend's with me. She's vegan. Do you have a separate like they might do that non-vegan, but typically speaking, they won't." And so you wind up having what feels like very specific to vegans, and even restaurants see it that way. So that when someone comes to them, someone who's organizing tours and says, "Hey, we've got 30 people with us, one of whom is vegan. What can you do for her?" Or 20 people with us, one of whom is vegan. What can you do for her? They go, "Oh God, I got to pull this out of my elbow now. Let me think." Right? And it seems like
Mm.
it's so different than what they're already making, serving, advertising. So that's a problem for both vegans and non-vegans, and it's a problem for restaurants that we all have to solve. I think for vegans, it means whatever that looks like, and we can kind of talk about what that means for us in terms of how we ask for what we want and what we expect. So let's put that one aside maybe for a minute. But in terms of advocating to restaurants, what vegans can and vegetarians can certainly do is work with restaurants to, first of all, start with where they're at, start with what they already have, look at the menus they already have and say, "Oh, no, 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 no. You've already got things that I can eat. You just didn't call it vegan. That's fine. Don't worry about it. But this right here, X, Y, and Z, this is already suitable for me. And look, you're already making it for everybody already, right? So start working with restaurants and look at what they already have. And they go, oh, I thought you couldn't eat gluten. I thought you didn't eat bread or whatever it is, right? And you go, no, 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 no. Here's what it means. It's just these three things or five things, including, aquatic animals. So that's a place to start. And then also, when it comes to helping restaurants get more of these things on their menus that will be appealing to non-vegans, restaurants don't care. If restaurants can sell a dish, they're going to put it on their menu. Sorry, it's not going to be ideological for them. Who cares? I mean, this is
Right.
where vegans get so hung up. Well, they did it, but they didn't do it for the right reasons. Who cares what the right reasons are? If they put on their menu dishes that are going to be free of animal products and they will be appealing to both vegans and non-vegans and they sell those products, they sell those items, they're going to keep doing it. But if they just have menu items that say vegan or that vegans ask them to do this and make sure you put vegan on it, have a separate menu for us, it's going to fail. And then restaurants will say, "I tried,
Yeah.
didn't work, didn't work." So that's whether you're traveling or not. That could be local advocacy, that could be working with restaurants, your neighborhood restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. And I think we really estimate the work that we could do with restaurants. I think we could do a lot more advocacy with restaurants. We don't have to be a product like Beyond, that obviously works with restaurants and we can tell because on their menu, and they did it right. Beyond says, don't call this a vegan burger. You call it Beyond trademark burger. And you know what? They've done a good enough job with their marketing that non-vegans also see that and go, oh yeah, I've heard of Beyond Burger, right? And now it doesn't have the vegan label, but we know it's suitable for vegans. We know it's plant-based because it's Beyond and we know that. So I just feel like vegans maybe in their advocacy want to think about non-vegans more rather than themselves because we will find what we need. What we want to solve for is the larger population so that they're satisfied and go, oh yeah, I had that Beyond Burger. Oh yeah, I guess it was vegan. Oh yeah, awesome. I loved it. I'll have it again. Right? Does that make sense? It's a lot.
That's so true. I have, because I get stuck in my, but it's about the animals.
Hmm.
But what in spending time with, my group, I'm looking, they think this is hard. And I'm not making it look easy. We have, a layover at the LAX and I'm scouring, okay, here's the two things I can eat, and, and they're accommodating, but this isn't looking inviting, fun, better, it's just looking restrictive. And so I, I'm in this space as you are. So it looks very busy to me. It's got like, we have recipes. I said, what do you mean you don't know what to cook? There are cookbooks, there are, Instagram posts. It's all over the place, but they aren't looking. That isn't what they see. And so, it's never too much to say, well, here's what I'm eating. This is what I'm going to have. It's everything else. Look at how simple this is. I have breakfast just like you do. It's, and I'm starting to embrace that. It's like, okay, they simply want to know what to eat. Most people, I want to believe, don't want to hurt animals, if they could have an option and they're watching it, like you said, this spicy, smoky chickpea burger, that sounds enticing. So I love that. That's such an excellent point. But I do want to talk about your traveling because I've looked at it a couple times and I'm like, oh, I should be on that trip. So tell me about that. How did that get started and how's it going and all about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about normalizing food and just plant food. That's all this is. And it's also about saying that there is no reason you should have good enough because I'm going to bet that you paid the same amount of money for that trip that everybody else did and you got good enough, right?
Yes.
And so these trips came out of that. These trips came out of, and everything I do comes out of, there is no reason for deprivation. There is no reason for good enough. There's certainly no reason for nothing and awful. I mean, I wrote an article on my Substack last week about the experience I had on the plane. And like, look, no one travels on planes because they love the cuisine, even if they're not
Right.
vegan. So I'm not, my expectations are pretty sound, but still, what chefs do on some of these airlines, and it really has to do with what catering company the airlines are contracting and what city they're leaving from, because that really varies as well. British Airlines, British Airways might have a better plant-based option coming out of London than they're going to have coming out of San Francisco, ironically, because of the catering company that they're using and
Interesting.
what they know. So there's an opportunity there as well. The point is, it is not okay that I am paying the same amount that everybody else is, and I am getting this horrifically inedible meal. And I wrote to British Airways. I wrote my article. I wrote to British Airways. I've since heard back from them. They've, credited us 10,000, points. Great, fine. But I could probably accumulate a lot of points just by complaining about the food. I'm sure I could. That's a strategy there. But what I'd rather is that the food is good and that the food is good for anybody. And like you're saying, that someone looks over at what I'm eating, knowing that I got the plant-based meal and they think I want that, right? That
Right.
happens on, I will say, it happens on JAL, Japan Airlines. So what did you fly?
Was
What airlines?
Well, it's on the way over, long story, but we ended up on Hawaiian Air, and they didn't have my plant-based option, although I had requested it.
course.
But on the way back, it was Japan
It
Air.
was
Yeah,
Japan.
yeah.
So that is something for everybody to know. Just like, even if you've requested it, call 24 hours again and just assume they don't have it and just do it again. Like, even if
Yes,
it's
over
one,
and over.
you can do it
Agreed.
over. Exactly. So the Eastern airlines tend to do better because Asian cuisine tends to be more, they embrace plant-based cuisine more. It's in their history, it's in their tradition more. So the airlines that serve, Taiwan and Thailand and Vietnam and Japan and China, like, they tend to do better with the food. But one thing that's really fun is Japan Airlines. And I included this in the article. They have a ramen on their a la carte menu that is plant-based. And this is not even the vegan menu. This is the regular a la carte menu. And their ramen is actually inspired by one of my favorite ramen restaurants in Tokyo, in Akasaka, in the neighborhood of Akasaka. It's Kyushu Jangara. And it's not the same. Like, the one that's actually in the restaurant, in the ramen shop in Tokyo, is worlds better than the one that's on the plane, but the one that's on the plane is really good. So when we were flying to Japan in April, there were some women sitting across the aisle from us, and I could see that they were trying to decide, and I'm just one of these people who can't help myself. And I said, "Oh my gosh, have you had the ramen?"
Good for
And
you.
they said no, and they said we were looking at it. And the way the airline does it, I'm so pleased, because they put at the bottom, it's a little plant, it's a little leaf or something, and it actually says made without animal products. It doesn't say vegan or vegetarian. It just says made without animal products, and there's a little plant next to it. So someone who just cares about good food isn't going to go, oh, I mean, I guess some people will, some crazy carnivore, diet people, but most people are going to say, oh, okay, fine, whatever. But that looks really good because it also gives the description of the whole thing. So I'm going on
Right.
about this ramen, but the point is a lot of this depends on, who you're working with. And so for the trips that we do, the Joyful Vegan trips, so they originally started out as Joyful Vegan trips because the partners that I work with, Bridie and Seb, they were travelers on another trip that I had done with a different tour company. And that tour company is not the right fit for me. And Bridie and Seb, who had come with me on two trips to Italy, this is back in 2014 and 2015. At the end of the second trip, when I knew I wasn't going to work with that other tour company anymore, Bridie and Seb had had a background in tour leading, and they kind of said, we could do this. Like, we could actually make these trips amazing. And I was pretty burnt from what had happened with the company I had worked with already. So I said, nope, 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 not doing this again, not doing this again. And then I started traveling with Bridie and Seb, my husband, and I started traveling with them, and they kept planting these seeds. And finally, Seb said, let me just put together a trip to Thailand for you. You sell it, and I will run it. And that's how it started. So that first one with them was in 2017, and they've now become World Vegan Travel, and they have their own travel company now, and they are leading tours around the world. I do half of them with them now, but they're now doing trips without me, which is great. This is what we want. They're
More
thriving,
is better. Yes.
growing. Exactly. And I would never work with another travel company. We are aligned completely, and we are aligned in terms of the quality of the food, the quality of the experiences in every way. And so again, it's all about working with the vendors who want to create an incredible experience for our travelers. And, Bridie and Seb do a lot of this legwork. I work with them as well, and my brand is on it and my name is on it. So the standards are up to mine, they're up to my standards. However, it is about finding the vendors, finding the chefs, finding the restaurants who want to work with us and create this incredible experience. And we want the experiences to also be regional. We're not looking to have, you know, I don't know, Chinese food in Japan. Like, we want the local okonomiyaki, ramen, sushi, shojin roi cuisine. We want all of the cuisine that everybody else is eating. And that's what we do for every country we go to. So we were just in the Dordogne region, the southwestern region of France, which is in a rural area. We start in Paris, we end in Bordeaux, to give people an idea of where it is. It's not far from Bordeaux. And it's the area where a lot of the prehistoric caves are. So where a lot of the Paleolithic cave art is. And it's an incredibly beautiful region. It's green, it's forested, and it's rural. And guess what? In rural regions, not a lot of vegan options. It's mostly animal products because it's a rural region. That's what we find kind of worldwide, right? The cities are the ones that have kind of more diverse food options. But we work with our villa. We stay at the same villa. We work with those chefs. They are proud of the work they have done to create the regional cuisine plant-based. So it's that's why we do these trips. And I'm saying this in a mixed way because like, hey, everybody come on these trips. They're amazing. Like I can't say enough about them. And then there's a reason why we're about to go to Croatia in September. We have a 95% return rate for those trips. I mean, it is once people see what we do on these trips, they just come back again and again and again. So I'm super proud of that. And I'm so proud of my partners. But I'm saying this also in a way to appeal to just, people who aren't going to come on the trips with us, who just going to go up on their own. It is a matter of communicating with either of the vendors, finding the restaurants, working with them, asking for what you want. And again, kind of starting with what they already have and what they already know and showing them where, oh, no, you don't have to do too much. You just shift this over here and I'm fine, right? And then also, obviously, to your point about resources out there, before you're going to any of these places, find out what restaurants are already vegan friendly. Find out what dishes can already be made, easily be made vegan. Some things are not going to be able to be made, plant-based. But there's, so there's some legwork to do up front, but we can all do better. Restaurants can do better. Chefs can do better. When you were talking before, how they don't even think about it. Worldwide, chefs are trained in fat and salt. That is what they're trained in. That's why restaurant food tastes so good because it is rich, because it's richer and more oily and fattier and saltier than what we would make at home. But that's why people like it. And that's how chefs see their craft. They don't want to modify it from that because they think it's going to be bland and their name is on it and their reputation is on it. So there's this really interesting dynamic around, kind of the customer and the chef. And depending on the country and depending on the gender, I'll be honest, because, your male chefs can be a bit machismo around some of the things. They don't want to, necessarily be told that they have to modify something and that what they're making isn't good, right? So there's those kinds of delicacies as well that we have to be aware of, the psychological aspect and the social aspect of what we're asking for. So it's a lot there to unpack.
You're listening to Better Life for Animals podcast. Our mission is to amplify the voices of animal advocates, sanctuaries, and changemakers working toward a kinder, more compassionate world. But we can't do it alone. We need your help. First of all, go ahead and subscribe to this channel wherever you're watching or listening. And then get involved by visiting betterlifeforanimals.com. That's betterlifeforanimals.com. Be sure to check out our blog, learn more about incredible sanctuaries, and explore our book section, where 100% of net proceeds from book sales are donated to sanctuaries. Every action you take helps to make a difference. And remember, subscribe to this channel. And now, back to the show.
If you're just joining us, this is Better Life for Animals, and we're having a lovely conversation with Colleen Patrick-Goudreau of The Joyful Vegan. So, Colleen, I love your new book, A Year of Compassion. I have to say that when I first got it, I expected it to be a story of deprivation. Every day I gave up a little bit more, and I thought, but that's not at all what this book is about. That's not how it's laid out. It's certainly set up week by week. However, you can pick any topic and make an improvement in your situation. I know that, like, I was immediately drawn to, because we focus on sanctuaries on this podcast, embracing ethical entertainment, or, really knowing, do you really need to go to a zoo when there's a sanctuary? And back to your traveling, I know you've been to see the gorillas, but you're seeing them in their natural state. And so I was wondering if you could talk about how important that being in their natural state and being, treating them like they are, sentient beings like they are, as opposed to exploiting them as we do in so many places.
Yeah, well, I'll also say that actually sanctuaries and refuges and that is part of our trips as well. So wherever we
Right.
can, we visit a sanctuary or a refuge. So we were in the Dordogne. There is an incredible sanctuary that just opened a few years ago. It's called Elephant Haven, and they are two former zookeepers. And they left the zoo industry, love elephants so much, and they opened the first European sanctuary for elephants. And the two that are there now, the two who are there now, are rescued from. They were both rescued from exploitation, and that can be from Europe, that could be from Romania, it could be from Germany, it can be from wherever. When we do our Alsace trip, we go to a bear and wolf sanctuary in the Black Forest, where there are wolves and bears who are rescued from different various kind of abuse and exploitation. So it depends on where we go. In Vietnam, we go and support incredible work being done to for a particular kind of monkey, a langur monkey, and we go on a hike and a trek with them to see the work they're doing, with a very difficult communist country, a government, to work to protect the forests and the habitat of these monkeys, et cetera. So wherever we go, we really, in Italy, we do farmed animal sanctuaries. There's farmed animal sanctuaries when we go up in Tuscany and as well as northern Italy. So we support sanctuaries wherever we can. And then, of course, when it is possible, and of course, in so many countries in Africa, it is possible to be able to go on these incredible excursions to go and support and see. I mean, like seeing, gorillas, mountain gorillas in their natural habitat is just so incredibly life-changing. In specifically in Rwanda, Uganda, Congo, it's the only place where mountain gorillas live. There are, low mountain gorillas, but they're the ones that you would see in zoos. You would never see a mountain gorilla in a zoo because they don't thrive in zoos. Sadly, lowland gorillas do, more so. So they're in other parts of Africa, but mountain gorillas live only in this mountain range. So yeah, it's incredible. Same thing with Botswana. So obviously going on the safari to go see animals. And I've done podcast episodes, Cheryl, on these topics because I know some people might hear that and say that's exploitation, just going into their habitat and their territory. Why don't we just leave them alone? I wish we could just value animals for who they were and as they are. Sadly, in order to support their well-being and their conservation and their habitat, ecotourism really does do that. It really, really, really does. I mean, the mountain gorillas were on their way to extinction. When Diane Fossey was murdered in, 1989, 1990, she counted 200 or so mountain gorillas. I mean, they were on their way to extinction. One of the things that has changed it for them is ecotourism. So we pay $1,500 to see these mountain gorillas. This money goes directly to their conservation and it goes to the local communities as well. So it's incredible. So I would say to anybody, whether you come on our trips or you just go on your own, going and supporting and finding out who the people are who are doing rescue in the country you're visiting, it's a gift to them and it's a gift to you as well.
Do you find that everyone that comes on your trips, that they're vegan or that they're vegan curious and that they maybe come back, more enlightened and perhaps even more committed to taking that full-on journey?
They do. They do. So there are non-vegans who come. They're usually the ones who are partners or friends of the vegan
Right.
who kind of initiated the trip. But we've seen that both with platonic friends and romantic partners. And I mean, I have chills just thinking about it because we do have people who come back again, and when they come back, they're vegan. And it's not just what the food is that they experience, it's the places we go. Because obviously, these trips are also about the sightseeing. Wherever we're going, we're also
Sure.
going to the
Course.
incredible places wherever country we're in. But it's also about the camaraderie and the integrity of the people who come on these trips is so high. So you get this camaraderie and you get this connection, especially around like-minded, compassion and wellness. So you have that, and that just also spills over into the people who, who might be new, who never came on a trip before, and certainly to those who are not vegan. There's never been an experience where someone feels judged because they're not vegan, and there's never an experience where a non-vegan, a vegan feels that they're in the presence of someone who, I don't know, exploits animals. Obviously, I will say, maybe it's not obvious, but the rule on our trips is if you're not vegan, and you want something that we're not serving, you can go off on your own. We don't want to see it. We don't want to, because people have their own opportunities to go on their own sometimes. And so, look, if you want to go get a burger. I think there was a case where someone once did. It wasn't, I don't think it was one of our trips, actually. I'm thinking of that was the cruise I did. Then fine, you can do that, but we're not part of that. And we ask that there's never an opportunity for our vegan travelers to see anything like that. We really want this to be a safe space for everybody. And it is. And friendships form, and it's really a beautiful thing. So yeah, friendships form, but also minds are changed and expanded, and that's the beautiful thing. That's what life is all about.
And it's a couple weeks to try out vegan living.
Exactly.
I'm thinking about it now. It's like, well, how do I start? Well, here's a thought. You could start on a trip and you'd come back with, because it's delicious. Everything's going to be delicious. So they could come back and go, yes, I see the light.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That will change people.
Well, congratulations on your new book. So let's focus on this. Talk about what made you decide to write it, because you've got a lot of books out there, and yet this one it just seems to hit so many points in a very succinct manner, which I loved. So I'm interested to know what your thought process was.
Thank you. Well, I'm on a journey too, and a few years ago, I think it was 2017, 2016, I started really realizing the waste that I was contributing to. And I started looking at, the kind of whole concept of zero waste and where I could reduce my plastic consumption. And it wasn't just plastic, it was also food waste. I had some huge revelations around food that I was throwing out. We had composted, we kind of vacillated back and forth between composting, but there were definitely periods where I wasn't. And just being more mindful of my choices. And so I started on this journey, and it's not because I'm a public figure. It's because I'm an advocate. I can't not share it with other people. So I wanted to take people on this journey. And so I started talking about my zero waste adventures on my podcast. More people wanted to hear about it. That inspires me to then keep going, because we don't stop on this journey of compassion. Like, there's so much more to do and so much more to learn. And I get very excited about these things. And so I've started sharing this with my audience, and that continues. And the latest one for me, which is also in the book, but really, frankly, after I wrote the book, is when I had a real epiphany around rewilding and native gardening and native plants. Rewilding has always been in my nomenclature, and I've been aware of it, and I think about it on large estates in England and Scotland, where they're like, getting rid of all the invasives and they're bringing in the native species. And I've known about that, and I've supported it, and I even donate. And I wasn't making the connection in my own yard, where I was planting ornamentals and I was planting pollinating plants, but they're non-native and they don't support the very specific species who've co-evolved with the plants they need to pollinate. And so I had quite a revelation around that. So I'm always learning and I'm always growing, hopefully. And so that book came out of my journey, wanting to share more with my existing audience, but obviously all of those things go together: zero waste, plant-based, cruelty-free. It's all under the umbrella of compassion. And so, sure, there's going to be some things that my audience have heard. People are going to read the chapters on, eating more plant-based or taking a 30-day vegan challenge, and you're vegan already, fine. But do not tell me there is not something in that book that you won't be moved to do differently. So wherever you are in the spectrum, whatever you call yourself, whether you're vegan, vegetarian, not vegan, whatever, it doesn't matter. There's always things we can do to live more lightly and really to live more compassionately. Because I've said, you've probably heard me say, it's not about being vegan. Vegan is not the point. The end is not vegan. I'm not like, yep, vegan, badge, done. The point is to live as compassionately as possible. And being vegan is one of the easiest ways and the most pleasurable ways to manifest that Compassion is the goal, being zero waste and planting native plant. Like that's the way to actually live as compassionately as possible. So those are the means. The end is compassion, and that's why it's all under the umbrella of compassion.
It's even goes into things like, checking, the expiration dates on things. And is that really necessary? And things like keeping your, extra, just like with clothes or anything, it's also the food. It's like, where do you need all of this? I appreciated those chapters as well. And I very much appreciated the talk about sanctuaries and how, you've got to consider, what is it like for the animal? Is that really a sanctuary? And how are you, questioning how you can be entertained by somebody else's torture, quite frankly, So I thought that's something that seems to be very up, that people are willing to at least look at these days. It seems to be in the media, that we're being cruel to specific types of animals, which, is a good thing, because if you can look at that, then maybe, and next it's the farm animals and the fish,
For sure. And in all these cases, I mean, there's always, sadly, kind of ways of exploiting animals we've never thought of before. And especially today in the world of Instagram and selfies, there's a lot around, photographs with especially baby wild animals. And I would say to anybody listening, and I'm sure they already know, but if there is a wild animal in any way being part of any kind of photo shoot or anything at all, there is exploitation and abuse. They hide it. It may not be right in front of you, but it is there. And they will tell you a story that they're not being harmed, that, oh, they were abandoned, they can't be released back into the wild, so this is a way to support them. No. If there is any animal, any wild animal in any way, you can bet your bottom dollar, if there's any way that you're taking photos or selfies with them, it's not a true sanctuary. Domesticated animals, it's a different story, because they thrive, farmed animals thrive in a farm animal environment. They thrive, in a different environment. So it's not the same kind of thing. And they've been domesticated. They have interactions with humans all the time. So anyway, so those are the kinds of things that people need to look at before they're going to any situation. I mean, Thailand's a perfect example, because, elephant riding is such a big deal there, and, getting paintings from elephants, like anything like that, just kind of go with your gut and then do your due diligence and find out for sure if you're contributing to exploitations, because it's pretty harsh for the animals themselves.
Absolutely. Well, I really have enjoyed our conversation today, and I'm just wondering if there's any final thoughts that you might have that you'd like to share with us.
Oh, it's just be open. Just constantly be open and look at where we can do better. That's what this is about. It's just about being the best we can, learning more, learning from each other, recognizing where we've made mistakes but can do better. You've always heard me say, don't do nothing because you can't do everything. Do something, anything, whatever step you take in the direction of being more kind and compassionate and eating healthier. It's only going to be a good thing for everybody. So just be open and go with your gut.
And tell us how we can find you.
Joyfulvegan.com is the easiest place.
Okay, very good. Well, this has just been a wonderful conversation that we've had with Colleen Patrick-Goudreau of The Joyful Vegan. And if you have enjoyed this podcast today, please like and subscribe so that we can create a better life for animals.
Thank you for joining us on the Better Life for Animals podcast. Together, we can create a world where all beings are treated with dignity, respect, and care. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening. It helps us reach more people and spread awareness about the incredible work happening in animal sanctuaries. You can also share this episode with friends and fellow advocates to keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep speaking up, taking action, and making a difference for the animals.